right, traders. This is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you all back. We are going to get started with our morning analysis, and as you guys can see, we've had some nice movements this morning. Actually, let's pull up the bias chart really quick. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Regarding the euro dollar, I want to point out a couple of things regarding the euro. Okay, so first and foremost, look at the candle that's being developed today. Okay, this is the daily chart of the euro. It's really important because if we end the day higher, now it's a tall order in my opinion. Here, let me get rid of a couple of things. Get rid of that really quick. It's a tall order because if the Fed does make a move on the discount rate, it's going to be really tough for the euro to sustain gains that you're seeing right now. So, and obviously I don't know what the Fed's going to do today. They have a surprise meeting or an impromptu meeting. It's happening. It either here. Wait. Let me grab something real quick. This is from the Fed, FederalReserve.gov. Okay. Government in the sunshine meeting notice. Advance notice of a meeting under expedited procedures. It is anticipated that the closed meeting of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System at 11:30 a.m. on Monday, November 3rd, 2015. It will be held under expedited procedures as set forth. Blah 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 blah. The following terms: review and determination of the Board of Governors advance discount rates to be charged by the Federal Reserve banks. So the meeting is today at 11:30 a.m. Jay said, government in the sunshine meeting notice. What is this, Middle Earth? No kidding. Advance no. The government in the sunshine meeting notice. I mean, I would think this this meeting has taken place in Sedona, Arizona, underneath the vortex, and everybody will be sitting Indian style, singing Om. What the hell? Seriously, what is that supposed to mean? Okay, anyway, so the meeting's at 11:30 this morning. Shoot, I just snotted all over myself. I found that so funny. Okay, so the meeting's at 11:30. So who knows when? That means they're probably going to make an announcement as close to 2 as possible. And so whenever that is, whatever the Fed decides to do, and I agree with Scott a little earlier, is like, why would they call a surprise meeting? The first surprise meeting they've called since 2012. Why are they going to do it to do nothing? They're going to probably do something, and that's why the dollar's been so well bid. Now the dollar did lose its strength just over the last hour or two. As we've seen the euro dollar bounce, the pound, the Swissies pull back, yada yada yada. But the reason why the dollar's been so strong over the course of the last 12 hours or so, it's because of this meeting that's going to happen today. Now, if the Fed does raise the discount rate, like I said, I think it's pretty much set in stone. The Fed's going to raise rates in December. I would think the probabilities are closer to 90%. Okay. Unless something dramatically changes between now and December 18th or whenever the meeting is. Now, with that being said, you have to go back to the euro dollar and wonder, okay, how are we going to close today? Because if we close with a green candle or like this, that's a false breakdown and a reversal. Okay, that's something to really pay attention to today. Like I can't see that happening, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. Okay, I can't see us closing like this if the Fed raises the discount rate. But I may be wrong. Maybe we get the buy the rumor, sell the news. You know what I mean? And if that is the case, then perhaps this euro does stage a pretty big rally. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to mark up a couple things. Okay, so let's get rid of this. First and foremost, the low, overnight low is really important because now most of us, I would say most of us, most market participants at this point in time are really looking for a raise of the discount rate. You know, uh, and if that happens, you know, will it provoke dollar strength again and push the euro back down towards 106? But 106 is super important today for anybody who's bullish the euro. Okay, so 106 is going to be support. Now, where can we rally to? All right, let's imagine we do get a rally in the euro. This 106.60 is going to be a big resistance level. Okay, 106.60 is a 38% retracement. It's also previous support. You see that? But here's the thing, guys. You know, if this is possible. We raise the rates, or we raise the rate. I'm sorry. We get a rally and we stall here, but if we do, it's still going to put in a really nasty reversal in the daily candle. I mean, you're going to see a big green candle. I would not want to be long the dollar going into the next couple of days. Okay, so if we close the day up here at 106.60, that's a big deal, big reversal deal. Okay, 1.0660. That's key resistance. It's still a bearish bias. Oops, bearish bias. Excuse me. All right. Andy goes, what if the discount rate, they raise the discount rate but announce they keep the other rates on hold? Is that possible? You mean for next month? Yeah, I mean, if it's possible, oh my God, the dollar get crushed. Because again, if the Fed's raising the discount rate right now, everybody, myself included, is going to assume that the Fed's going to raise the Fed funds rate next or December 18th, or what I think that I'm 90% sure that's the date. Okay, so everybody would expect it. If the Fed decided they didn't want to raise rates in December, the dollar would get killed. I mean, it would be a bloodbath. I mean, we would see the euro back at 110 within 2 days. I mean, easily. Okay, but I don't even think that's possible. I think, you know, as the Fed, you know, as the Fed is, if the Fed raises the discount rate today, they're just basically they're doing everything that they can to prepare the market for next month. Like that, them raising the discount rate today is just further preparing the markets for a rate, a rate hike. Okay, that's it. That's it. All right. Anyway, ERW said December 16th is the FOMC. I thought it was the 18th, but that was just right off the top of my head without looking at the calendar, so thank you. I guess that would be kind of close to Christmas, huh? All right, anyway, let's go take a look at the pound. Let's go take a look at the cable and the pound dollar. Okay, the pound is underperforming, which is great because that means the euro pound is looking good. But you can see the pound dollar really underperforming. This, I mean, it crushed a lot of people last week. That reversal last week was just downright nasty. I mean, we rallied, hit that underside of that trend line that Benedict found, on Friday. We hit the 618. We reversed. We broke through the support by the end of the day on Friday. I mean, that is just a downright disgusting, nasty move. I'm long the euro pound, so I'm happy that this happened. But I'm just saying, if you were trading the cable, that was a really, 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 tough move there. I mean, it's hard to see those types of moves coming. You know what I mean? When you're And you're like, okay, here's a big reversal, and then you know then we reverse that hard off of these trend lines. It's those are tough to trade. They are. I mean, I wasn't trading it in particular, but man, that's a nasty move. Okay, so now we got to figure out, will we find support here? Because you notice the euro's finding support. So will the cable find some support here as well? Okay, there's a 618 retracement. Looks like we overshot this downside, which makes sense because it's the pound. So we overshot that downside. We overshot the 618. The low will be important today. So that is 151.25 basically. So that's important, 1.5125. Okay. Resistance on the way back up. John says, I effing hate the cave. Screwed me over the last week. Yes, laptop toss it is. That's right. Throw the laptop. It's okay. If it makes you feel better watching the laptop toss, that's what it's there for. Just go back and chuck one. All right, so any rally now in the cable back to 123, what is this? Or 123, 152.30. That's going to be probably a decent short. If we do this over the course of the next couple hours, that's probably going to be a really nice short up there. Okay, 152.30. Because we held below these trend lines, okay, we have to keep it. We have to keep the bearish thing in the bearish bias in play. Let's go look at the Swissy. So the Swissy, really strong, guys. We are approaching the 102.50, 102.40, which is obviously critical resistance for bulls. Okay, I am not long the dollar Swiss. I'm long the Aussie Swiss from Friday. Let me see. My Aussie Swiss, I am positive 3 pips. Yes, that's how awesome that is. So that's my only Swiss short exposure is long Aussie Swiss at the moment. But as you can see here, we're inching our way up towards really key resistance, and we break this 102.40. I mean, what do you say? It's gone. I mean, we just gotta. I'm gonna have to chase it. I just don't know where I'm gonna enter. I'm basically in the camp, as you guys know, that we're going to 110, 112 in the dollar Swiss. So it's just trying to figure out the right time to hop on. I mean, I keep missing opportunities as it dips. It's just dipping not shallow enough. Last week, I mean, I still have orders out in the Swissy to buy it at 1.0080. They just haven't gotten hit. I mean, any pullback that we've seen in the dollar Swiss just hasn't been, we stopped shy. Okay, it's very, very strong. Can we get a dip here? This would be nice if we can get a dip now down to 1.00 or 1.0125, which would be that support, right? $1.0125 would be, right now it's pretty key support on the way back down. Bullish bias. Dollar yen. I still am short the dollar yen at 123.15 still. It's not doing anything. Okay, so 123.60, 122.25, same numbers we've had written down forever. So 122.25 and 123.60. and we are in a range environment. Let's go into the Canadian. Yes, I'm pretty happy. I had a really nice short in the dollar Canadian this morning. If you guys missed it from earlier, I actually shorted the dollar Canadian at 134.07 before this move lower. OPEC made that announcement like 5 minutes after the fact. It dropped down to 133.30 or so, and I got out at 133.57 before we came all the way down there. So I got out a little early, but that's okay. Now that we've pulled back in this dollar Canadian, you have to imagine that rallies are going to be met with sellers. Okay, we've come off pretty aggressively. So this is an intraday chart. I would say any move back to 134 is going to be sold. Okay, if we get a move back to 134 in the dollar Canadian, I mean, I'll write down 134.34. What's the high here? 134.56, so 134.55. Okay, that's going to be really key resistance. I think we're just at the upper end of our range. But the whole reason why I shorted it above 134 in the first place is because I do believe we're in a big range here in the dollar Canadian. So I was just shorting it. Like I said, I got really lucky with that Saudi news that came out. But now I think any rally up here above 134 is going to be met with sellers. The only thing is if the Fed does raise the discount rate, does that put the dollar Canadian back up at those highs? It might. That's why you have to be kind of careful on the short side today. Alan says, I'm sorry, what I missed out. What is the OPEC announcement about? The announcement was just basically the Saudis announced that they are ready to cooperate with OPEC and non-OPEC countries to maintain stable oil prices. Crude was down like, crude was down like 3%, and we rallied back to, we were up actually like 1% at one point, so we rallied back pretty aggressively in crude. Okay, so that was the actual announcement. All right. Lorenz asks, is that rising dollar Canadian wedge, is that bearish? It is typically bearish, but actually we broke out to the upside already. Like typically this would be bearish, but see how we already pushed above it. Okay, that's why by the end of the day, if we end let's imagine the Fed raises the discount rate. The market runs out and buys dollars aggressively today as a result. That green candle is going to be green, probably all the way up to here. I don't know if I'd want to be short the dollar Canadian because of that. It's way too early in the day to make assumptions on what the daily candles are going to do. Way too early. Okay, way too early. Now, if we close the day at 133, that's a different story. Then that's going to be a false breakout to the upside. It's going to be a really nice short. But speaking of which, let's go figure out where support is. Actually, 133 is probably not a bad spot. I know we've been talking about 132 and 133, last week. So let me try something. Okay. So the 618 comes in here at 133.20. See, we got some spike lows around here. So I'm going to write down 133. 133.20 as being support. 133 might also support, but for now we'll just put it 133.20. That is the 618 here. Okay. let's go over the Kiwi. Right, here's the Kiwi dollar. Now the Kiwi, obviously 66. We're back at 65. Those are the numbers we wrote down last week. I think on Friday was 65 cents and 66 cents. We've been as low as 64.92. So what was the support we wrote down on Friday? I'm just double checking with you guys. What was the support we wrote down Friday? For those of you that have the information right out in front of you. Anybody? 65 cents? We did? Okay. So we basically are holding 65 cents. Okay, so that was Friday's support. Thanks, guys. So we wrote down 65 cents. We're basically holding there. You can see we're at 65.07. We went past it by a few pips. See how we overshot up there, overshot down here. Yeah, I don't know. Wow, look at that. 618 is right there at 64.96. Okay, so I'm going to write down 64.90 today just because of, that would mean we broke new lows if we're getting down here. Oops, 64.90. Okay. I'm not a big fan of going long the Kiwi dollar. You guys know I'm obviously very bullish the Aussie New Zealand. Just not a huge fan of the Kiwi at the moment. But for those of you that are looking for a counter trend trade, you can always go long the Kiwi right now. You can go long the Kiwi, put your stops below these lows. That's not something I would do or I want to do, but it's a trade that if you guys really want to, take advantage of these prices, you think we're going to bounce today, then, it might be not a bad trade. We had this head and shoulder pattern played out. Shoulder, head, shoulder. That played out pretty perfectly, actually, right? Yeah, I mean, let's grab a different color pen. Yeah, I mean, this played out perfectly, right? Neckline. I mean, that was perfect. Okay. So, I mean, if you want to get long and just put your stops below here, you can always do that. I would just look for a move back up to 65.50. Okay. So, 0.6550. We are in a range. All right, I'll be back in a few moments. When I come back, we'll do the Aussie dollar index, everything else. So don't go anywhere. Be back in a few minutes. Thanks, everyone. Hi, guys and gals. This is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you all back. Sorry about the delay there. Let's go into the Aussie dollar. All right, here's the Aussie. So, what do we do here? What do we do? The Aussie's obviously gotten a little bit of a lift as well. With the we saw a bit of a recovery in the euro and the pound, and so the Aussie started to lift as well. But what we did is we actually held really key support today. So this right here is very important for the Aussie bulls. Now, as you guys might recall on Friday, okay, I did get out of the Aussie dollar long at 72.30, whatever it was, 72.32, I think, because we were trying to push above this resistance, and I said, man, the reason why we couldn't is because it was Friday. I'm like, if it wasn't Friday afternoon, I might actually stay long. And then, people started buying the dollar ahead of the this Fed impromptu Fed meeting, which now what it did is, especially for the Aussie dollar, is solidified the resistance. I mean, this 72.50 is obviously key, and it's a big deal. if you want to be long the Aussie dollar, 72.50 needs to be scaled. And if we break above that, it will we'll go from probably a range environment to being bullish. Okay, because that means that we were actually turning the corner. Now, what we did today is we came down and we held the breakout point, which was 71.60. The low here was 71.59. So 71.60, 71.60. I mean, it's 71.60. Period. End of story. You want to go long the Aussie right now? This is your risk. You know, below there. All right. Um, I'm long the Aussie New Zealand. I'm long the Aussie Swiss. I held on to those. But you know, the Aussie dollar, we get above 72.50 and it'll turn bullish real quick. Okay. All right. Let's go over to the dollar index. Okay. So here's the dollar index, and what a reversal at this trend line. Okay. Let's see. Nice little trend line rejection. Support, 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 support. Broke resistance, knocked our head up against it, even as we hit new highs. And I recall last week, right here, saying, right here last week, I recall saying we could break into new highs and still be testing the underside of this trend line and reject there. And we did. We rallied here, rejected. Okay, so we're in brief new high territory. Okay, brief new high territory, but struggling at the moment. If, let's see here, let's do this. Looks like this gap wants to get filled down here. That gap comes in at 99.60, and then we have 100. Okay, so 99.60. That would be filling the gap 100.00, and this is bullish. But we're coming off right now. But I'm just saying that we could pull back here pretty easily. Let's go over to, let's see what's happening with the peso and the Nordic currencies. Wow, crude has turned really quickly. All right, so here's the peso. Not excited about that at all. Here's the Norwegian krona. Still holding above 860. Couldn't break below there on Friday. You know, I'm about ready to short this dollar Canadian again. Hold on really quick. I'm selling some here. Sorry. Stand by. I sold at 33.81. I sold some dollar Canadian again. Okay. Anyway, see how we're knocking our head up against previous support. We might get back up to 134, but I think it's going to be really tough too. So, all right. Where am I at? Going back to the Norwegian krona. I don't know if there's a whole lot to do here. I mean, if it breaks below 860, that's bearish. If we break above 873, that's bullish, but let's take a look at the Swedish krona. Choppy, right up against our highs. right up against resistance here. God, we should probably mark that up though, because you notice the U.S. dollar Swedish krona hasn't pulled back at all. I mean, this thing's really poised to move. If the Fed raises the discount rate and the dollar starts to rip, this U.S. dollar Swedish krona is probably going to new highs, I would assume. Okay, so let's write down 877, 860. 8.6000, 8.7700. We're in a range, but this thing has the potential of breaking out to the upside. Okay. All right. I think your bias chart's done here, so you guys can go ahead and write that information down. Let me take some questions. Going back to earlier this morning.